There's a sickness we don't speak of, not in therapy rooms, not in classrooms, not even in the quietest corners of our minds where truth often hides. It's the kind of sickness that wears a mask of excellence, that hides behind awards, accolades, and Instagram-worthy accomplishments. It's not blood or bone or virus. It's the slow suffocation of the soul under the crushing weight of toxic perfectionism. You've seen it. Maybe you've felt it, that ache in your chest when what you've done is never enough. The invisible whip behind your back, lashing you forward to do more, be more, prove more. And even when you win, even when the world applauds, there's still that voice, cold and cunning, whispering, "You could have done better." It doesn't care how hard you tried. It doesn't care if you haven't slept in 3 days. It demands flawlessness, or it offers you shame. This isn't discipline. This isn't ambition. This is the psychological trap of toxic perfectionism, and it is everywhere. It's in the child who hides their report card, terrified of a B+. It's in the artist who throws away their sketchbook because one line went wrong. It's in the entrepreneur who ties their worth to the last sale, and the partner who never feels lovable because they're not yet complete. It's not drive. It's fear disguised as virtue. But where does it begin? Often, it starts in childhood, long before we know how to spell the word perfect. Maybe it was a parent who only smiled when we achieved, who withheld love in the absence of success. Maybe it was a teacher who circled every mistake in red, but never praised the progress. Or maybe it was society itself whispering from magazine covers and social media feeds that your value is conditional. Conditional on your looks, your grades, your productivity, your obedience. So we learn. We learn to hustle for approval, to armor ourselves in achievement. We learn that love is earned, never given freely. And slowly, without realizing, we begin to believe that if we are not perfect, we are not worthy. But here, the truth, and it's going to hurt. Perfection is a moving target designed to keep you running until you collapse. And it does. Because toxic perfectionism isn't about reaching a goal, it's about avoiding punishment. It's a survival strategy born from fear. The fear of being judged, of being seen as weak, flawed, human. But the irony? In chasing perfection, we only become more fractured. The psychological toll is devastating. Anxiety festers in silence. Depression disguises itself as burnout. Our self-worth rots beneath the weight of relentless self-criticism. Every success is fleeting, every failure catastrophic. There is no middle ground, no room to breathe, no grace. And yet we wear it like a badge of honor. We glorify the sleepless nights, the overachieving, the impossibly high standards. We confuse self-destruction with discipline. We say things like, "I'm just a perfectionist," as if it's a charming quirk, but perfectionism isn't cute. It's a cage. And the bars? We built them ourselves. Worse still, this sickness spreads, infecting not just our inner world, but our relationships. Because if we demand perfection from ourselves, we eventually demand it from others. We become hypercritical, emotionally distant, incapable of vulnerability. We hold lovers, friends, even children to impossible standards, and when they inevitably fall short, we withdraw. Not because we don't love them, but because we can't tolerate the reminder that imperfection is real and unavoidable and human. And yet, we keep scrolling through curated lives on glowing screens, reinforcing the illusion that perfection exists. Filters, facades, highlight reels, everyone's smiling, no one failing, and we internalize it. We forget that behind every glossy image is a struggle, a scar, a sleepless night. But we measure our messy behind the scenes against their perfectly edited premiere and wonder why we feel so small. This isn't just a personal crisis. It's cultural, it's systemic, it's spiritual. In workplaces, toxic perfectionism masquerades as excellence. We celebrate the ones who never say no, who answer emails at 3 a.m., who sacrifice rest and family and joy on the altar of productivity. But beneath the surface, chronic stress, creative paralysis, a fear of taking risks. Because if every move must be flawless, then better to do nothing at all than to fail. And that's where it traps us, in stillness, in silence, in self-doubt. But here's what they don't tell you. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Perfection kills creativity. It strangles innovation. It silences authenticity. Because true growth, the messy, unpredictable, painful kind, requires imperfection. It requires trying and failing and getting back up. It requires grace. Not just for others, for yourself. Because you were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be whole. But being whole, truly whole, is terrifying when all you've ever known is performance. Because when you've built your identity on being the best, what's left of you when you fall short? Who are you without the trophies, the praise, the endless hustle? Toxic perfectionism doesn't just demand flawless outcomes. It demands that your very being is flawless. Your body, your words, your emotions, even your thoughts. And anything less than that? It declares unworthy. You start to notice it in the smallest moments. The way you delete a text message 6 times before hitting send, afraid it won't come across just right. The way you obsess over a single word in an email, a typo in a caption. The way your voice cracked during a presentation. You lie awake at night replaying a mistake from days ago. A stutter, a glance, a silence. And in your mind, it isn't just a mistake, it's a defining failure. You procrastinate, not out of laziness, but out of fear. Because if you never start, you can't mess it up. If you never show the world your art, your work, your truth, they can't reject it. Perfectionism breeds paralysis. And then it punishes you for standing still. You pour yourself into your work, chasing that unreachable moment where you'll finally feel done. But you never arrive. Because toxic perfectionism doesn't reward effort. It only notices flaws. You could pour your entire soul into something, and if there's a single blemish, it tells you to start over. This is the trap. You become addicted to productivity, not because you love creating, but because the silence terrifies you. Because in the stillness, the voice returns. That voice that says, "You're falling behind. You're not enough. They'll find out you're a fraud." And here's the cruel irony. The more perfect you try to be, the more disconnected you become from your real self. You become a curated version of a person, polished, pleasing, palatable. You learn to hide your insecurities behind perfection. You don't ask for help because needing help feels like weakness. You don't express anger or grief or need because being emotional feels messy, vulnerable, exposed. And so, you wear the mask, the high achiever mask, the I'm fine mask, the I've got it all under control mask. Until one day, the mask starts to crack, and underneath, you realize you're not sure who you are anymore. Because perfectionism steals authenticity. It numbs joy. It disconnects us from the people who love us, because how can someone truly love you if they've only ever known your performance? And perhaps this is the most brutal truth of all. Perfectionism is lonely. It isolates you. It convinces you that if people really saw your flaws, they would leave. That love is contingent on your ability to stay perfect. But the deeper you sink into this trap, the more hollow it becomes. The applause fades. The awards collect dust. The external validation you once worshipped loses its power. And you re-left asking the question that haunts all perfectionists. Who am I without all of this? In the digital age, this sickness is not just nurtured, it is weaponized. Social media has become a shrine to toxic perfectionism. Endless feeds of filtered lives, flawless bodies, curated aesthetics, success stories that skip the struggle, smiling faces that hide silent battles. We scroll and compare and self-flagellate. We mistake image for reality, and we forget that we're comparing our raw footage to someone else's highlight reel. This isn't inspiration, it's erosion. We are eroding under the constant pressure to perform not just at work or school, but in our very existence. We are asked to be perfect employees, perfect partners, perfect parents, perfect versions of ourselves all the time. And we internalize this message until it becomes our inner monologue. But let me ask you this. What if the pursuit of perfection is what is making you sick? What if your exhaustion is not a sign of weakness, but a sign that your soul is rejecting the lie? Because this kind of perfectionism cannot be sustained. The human spirit was never meant to live inside a pressure cooker. We are not machines. We are messy, emotional, evolving creatures. And it is in our imperfection, not our polish, that we find connection, growth, and truth. It begins perhaps not with a dramatic revolution, but with a whisper. Enough. Enough of the self-abuse disguised as discipline. Enough of the fear masquerading as ambition. Enough of the idea that you must earn your worth. That voice inside, the one that tells you you are never good enough, it isn't your voice. It was planted there. By trauma, by culture, by expectation. But you can unlearn it. You must unlearn it. The path forward isn't paved with gold medals and perfect scores. It's paved with small acts of defiance. You let the email go out with a typo. You show up with the truth instead of the performance. You rest, even when you feel guilty. You share the unfinished, the unfiltered, the real. And when that voice returns, whispering doubt and shame, you meet it with something it cannot understand: compassion. Not the fluffy, feel-good kind, the radical kind. The kind that says, I am worthy, not because of what I do, but because I exist. The kind that forgives, not just others, but yourself. Because in the end, healing from toxic perfectionism is not about doing more. It's about becoming more human. Becoming more human means reclaiming what toxic perfectionism told you to fear: your flaws, your feelings, your failures. It means realizing that your scars are not blemishes on your story. They are your story. Every crack in your armor lets the light in. Every misstep, every breakdown, every so-called mistake is a testament to the fact that you are still trying, still becoming, still alive. You were never meant to be a statue, unmoving, polished, untouchable. You were meant to be a wildfire, a storm, a work in progress. But that takes courage. It takes courage to disappoint expectations, especially your own. To walk away from the version of yourself you created just to survive. To look in the mirror without editing, without apologizing, and say, this is me, and I am enough. Not because you've achieved perfection, but because you've let go of the need to. There is power in imperfection, the kind of power that can't be measured by performance metrics or approval ratings. It's the quiet power of authenticity, of someone who chooses truth over image, growth over comfort, compassion over control. And when you do this, when you choose to live outside the trap, something shifts. You stop chasing. You start creating. You stop fearing judgment, and you start building connection. Real, messy, imperfect connection. The kind that sees you fully and stays. Because here is the truth that perfectionism will never tell you. You were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to be free. And freedom, true freedom, begins the moment you stop trying to earn your worth and start remembering that it was never in question. So drop the mask, burn the checklist. Let go of the life that was built to impress and build one that is built to feel. Let yourself be seen not for what you've accomplished, but for who you are when no one is watching. That is where your healing lives. That is where your power begins. Not in perfection, but in being fully, deeply, unapologetically human.